3 ways to earn online reviews from customers with Garrett Sussman. The In Search SEO podcast is brought to you by Rank Ranger, the all-in-one SEO platform that helps scale your business through data and analytics. Hey, it's David. They say that people buy from people. And in the digital world, people often buy because of favourable online reviews. So when is the right time to ask your customers for a review, and how can you ensure that you don't annoy them in the process? That's what we're covering today with a man who's worked in marketing for over 14 years across a number of disciplines, including content marketing, demand generation, affiliate marketing, and SEO. He's currently the Demand Generation Manager at Rank. A warm welcome to the In Search SEO podcast, Garrett Sussman.
Thanks for having me, David. I love this topic. I can't wait to talk.
Oh, superb. Well, great to have you on board, Garrett. Well, you can find Garrett over at iporank.com. So, Garrett, today you're sharing 3 ways to earn online reviews from customers, starting off with number 1, train employees to ask for them.
Absolutely. So whether you're working local SEO, brick and mortar, or online, e-commerce, or even the service industry, it's so important to actually make the ask, because 9 times out of 10, your customers aren't necessarily thinking about leaving a review, but it's so valuable to your visibility online. And as you mentioned, is social proof. So first step, talk to your employees to make sure that at that moment when your customer is having a positive experience, that you say, hey, if you're liking this, if this works for you, if this makes you happy, do you mind going and leaving us a review online? Almost all review systems, we're not even just talking Google, any third-party review system allows the employees to ask directly, except for Yelp. But if it's face-to-face in person, it's not as explicitly against their terms and conditions.
I like that mention of at that moment they're having a positive experience, because I must admit it really annoys me, and I'm sure it annoys many people, when you just bought something and straight away you're asked to review it and you're thinking, I haven't even got this product in my hands. I can't actually tell you what it's like. Give me a moment. When do you identify when is exactly the right moment to ask that question?
It really depends on your product or your service. And a lot of that kind of just speaks to talking to your customers in general and really understanding how they interact with your business. So, whether or not you're at a restaurant, and probably at the end of the meal is a good time to ask for a review. Whereas, if you are, an e-commerce site and you're selling a TV, maybe you don't do it right at the purchase point. Like, there's no harm in doing it if it's innocuous, but you're much more likely, to your point, to get the review after they've tried out the product, had a good experience, and then follow up with, that ask.
And is it a bit shady to try and skew your reviews by doing something like perhaps giving them a little survey to complete and trying to determine how positive they feel about your brand and their experience and the experience with your product that they've had? And then after that, actually saying to them, oh, I'd love you to write a Google review or a review somewhere else for me. Or is that not something that you should be doing?
Well, so it's funny that you mentioned that, because there are different rules and regulations depending on the review site. Google actually explicitly says you can't incentivize reviews by saying, hey, I'll give you this or I'll give you a discount. And technically, they could actually remove all of your reviews or penalize you if they find out that's the case, if someone reports you. Now, they're notoriously not great at getting rid of, reviews that break the rules, but that's always a risk. Whereas if you are a software provider and you are getting reviews on like G2, for instance, they actually help you with an advertising campaign and offer like $25 gift cards for someone to write the review. Yelp says don't ask for reviews in any capacity. So it really depends on the third-party review site and understanding what their terms and conditions are.
And if you work in a business that does have that physical interaction, you mentioned a restaurant earlier on, maybe some other business like that has that face-to-face interaction with the customer, or at least over the phone as well. Is there any phraseology that you should aim for? And also, is there any percentage that you should aim for in how many people actually proceed and leave a review for you?
Well, it really depends on the industry, and the volume of customers. Like if you're at a restaurant, you're going to have a ton of people coming in and out. Whereas if you are a lawyer, you're not going to have hundreds and hundreds of clients. So the ask is that much more important and that much more significant. I think two keys for the face-to-face review is making it very easy to get to the review site, whether that's through a QR code, which some people do actually use that will direct them to the appropriate, or a very easy, abbreviated shortened link, perhaps. So making it easy to write the review and removing friction. The other thing is kind of phrasing it in the context of attributes that you want to showcase. You can't tell someone what to write. There are times where they actually do want you to write it for them to even reduce the friction even more, but obviously it depends on the terms and conditions of the review ecosystem. But if you can say, hey, did you enjoy the pool at our hotel? Maybe by planting that seed, they'll mention the pool in their Google review. And then next time someone is actually searching for hotels with pools, you might be that much more likely to show up and be more visible because of that specific keyword mention. Now, the keywords matter in the actual review content, not if the owner responds to the review with the keyword. That doesn't matter to Google.
I love that, planting seeds. So maybe you could have a conversation with customers saying, what did you enjoy most about what we delivered? And then that can be top of mind. They can be passionate about whatever it was that they enjoyed most about it. And then you can say, would you mind leaving a review for us? And then that's top of mind straight away. And they've got that positive experience, positive feeling top of mind. So the second way that you'd like to highlight in terms of a way to augment the number of reviews, the quality of reviews that you get, is email and text drip campaigns.
Yeah, so as important as reviews are to us as a business, it's really not always top of mind of the customer. To your point about percentages, yeah, there will be people who go and write that review right away, especially if you make it easy, but a lot of people don't think about it, especially the minute they walk out that door. That's not to say they didn't have a great time, but typically people are much more likely to write a review if they have a bad experience. And so you kind of need to balance that out with all of your positive reviews. So email, text campaigns, if you're able to capture that information from your customer, from your client, which is much more likely these days with, POS systems where do you want your receipt emailed to you? You can get the email that way. Then you can send some follow-up emails that aren't too annoying, but remember, if you don't ask, people are not going to necessarily remember. So what I found working at my past job at Great Us was actually sending out emails, maybe 3 emails over the course of a week or 10 days with a slight reminder, just being like, hey, remember you visited our restaurant, hope you had a good time. Would you please leave us a review? It means a lot to our business. Or doing it through text. Now, obviously, with any sort of advertising or marketing, you have to make sure that you have consent from your customers to do that. But you're much more likely to get the review with that reminder. And if they did have a positive experience, chances are you're not annoying them. I mean, you think about how many newsletters or emails we get that just kind of, slip down and you don't even think about it. So making the ask is worth it in the grand scheme of things. Just have an appropriate tone.
Yeah, I was just thinking, actually, you mentioned having an email, a receipt email to you after you've actually bought something physically. I was in a city just last weekend, bought a couple of jumpers, sweaters, pullovers, whatever you want to call them, depending on what country you're from. And I was asked the question, can we email your receipt to you? I said, yes, gave my email address. Now, would it be legal then for them to follow up with a request for a review, or have they articulated at the time? And is it okay that we send a follow-up email asking you about what you thought about the products or something like that?
Well, as you mentioned, in different locations, it really depends on the geography, right? In the EU, I would assume, now I don't know definitively, but I would assume that it's probably not okay just with verbal consent. You might need some sort of terms and conditions or writing, but I won't speak to what I don't know. In the US, it's generally okay to at least have terms and conditions. A lot of times, when someone signs, their online POS, or they give their credit card, you can either ask them, train your employees to ask them, or just make sure that they see the receipt visually, digitally. Like a lot of these systems like Stripe or whatever have these processes in place.
Yeah. I mean, I would think, not a lawyer speaking, obviously, common sense says that if at the time you say, can we send a receipt to you? And then would it be okay if we just follow up with a quick survey just so you can provide feedback on your experience today? Just a simple question like that. I would think that the majority of people would actually say, yes, that's okay. And then it's possible for the customer service person just to tick a box just to do that. Perhaps, as you say, verbal consent makes that more challenging, but I guess you could record most things nowadays as well to have backup as well.
Yeah. I mean, you always want to err on the side of caution and cover your bases, but I know in the US, no one's going, it's very, very, very unlikely that someone would sue you for sending you a marketing or even report you for sending a marketing email after having a good experience. So,
but you want to demonstrate that you're trying to do the right thing, rather than sneakily send something to someone that they're not expecting.
Yeah, I mean, ethically, I think it's always good to respect and treat your customers with respect and respect their privacy, respect what their communication, all that. So I don't think you would, risk wise, I don't think there would actually be any consequences, but from human decency wise, it's just the right thing to do.
Exactly. And they're more likely to perhaps even socially post positive things about your brand because of that positive experience. And that kind of leads up to the third point that you were sharing, and that's deliver great customer support and a memorable experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Daniel Lemon wrote a great book called Talk Triggers, talking all about, back in the day in the US. So one example is at the hotels, they used to leave mints on the pillow, or at DoubleTree, they would give you a fresh baked cookie. And it would be this experience that was memorable, that people say, oh, I want to go back to this hotel, because that little detail that put a smile on my face. I remember a restaurant I used to go to called the Ground Round that used to always have a basket full of popcorn. That when you sat down at your table, it was unique, and they had video games, and it was a memorable experience that if I was writing a review, 12-year-old me, but adult me at this time, if I was going with my daughter, would write a review because of that specific experience that you had that gave you this emotional reaction. And a lot of times people want to share that, to your point, whether it's on social media or in a review. And all of this plays into, in the grand scheme of things with SEO, these EEAT factors, right? The experience, expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. Back in December, Google added the second E, experience, and a lot of review content kind of falls under that. And so sharing these experiences through these reviews ultimately have a lot of SEO benefits.
Yeah, and that kind of book that you were sharing there, Talk Triggers, reminded me of another book, an earlier book called The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. And he used to talk about trying to create a business as being potentially franchisable. It doesn't have to be franchised, but you're creating a set of experiences for your customer that is highly replicatable. And if you do that, then that would work in this particular aspect of it in terms of asking for reviews. If it's highly replicatable and it's easy for your staff to do, you're more likely to get a higher percentage of your customers engaging with it.
Oh yeah. I think, and that's why, especially in the US, so many of these franchises are successful. Is you think Starbucks, wherever you go, no matter where you go, you're always going to get the same experience and the experience that you come to expect. And that kind of really does drive a certain amount of brand loyalty. But the way that plays into ultimately your reviews and your social presence will help the visibility and getting new customers and growth.
So let's finish off with
the Pareto Pickle.
So Pareto says that you can get 80% of your results from 20% of your efforts. What's one SEO activity that you would recommend that provides incredible results for modest levels of effort?
Well, aside from automating review requests, no, the biggest thing I would say would be internal linking. Making sure that every time you create a new piece of content, that you are going back to anything that's topically relevant and linking it to those other pieces of content. So there's that page rank, link equity that's passed across, as well as using any sort of automated options in terms of, related articles or, top articles that are connected to whatever you're publishing.
Superb. Okay. And in terms of automating that and using software to do that, do you tend to use WordPress plugins to do that? Or is there some kind of system that you would recommend to do that in the most efficient way possible?
So I don't know if other SEOs will get upset for me saying it, but I am a fan of page builders, Elementor, Webflow, those, and they typically have little sorts of widgets that will allow you to customize and set up automated posts and articles and not carousels, but little kind of widgets that will continually add relevant content in an automated way. But there are tons of plugins out there on WordPress as well if you don't use an actual page builder.
Yeah, it's good advice. It's the kind of age-old advice that's been good practice for a long time, but it's easy to forget about it and not implement those things. Certainly in the past, 10 plus years ago, I've always tried to have two different sections of links. One is related posts or related pages, and the other is more, authoritative, longer term pages. And actually, I was thinking probably there's a third type, and that's the most recent ones as well. So I guess that's the three types of links that I would probably focus on myself. Is that a similar kind of way of doing it that you would agree with?
Yeah, I absolutely. And I think in terms of those evergreen longer posts, I think you can even segment it further by what are the most popular, because those typically will have a lot of, kind of authority in terms of they're already performing well. And so in terms of link equity, distributing that, will in terms of rank rate, will ultimately help performance for those newer pages to get indexed quickly and then ultimately to get ranked themselves.
I've been your host, David Bain. You can find Garrett Sussman over at iPullRank.com. Garrett, thanks so much for being on the In Search SEO podcast.
Thanks for having me, David.
And thank you for listening. Check out all the previous episodes and sign up for a free trial of the Rank Ranger platform over at rankranger.com.